On behalf of all the living today, our great ancestors who fought for the liberation, unification, development of Africa, and of those unborn for whom we fight, so they can have a better future than even we had. Just as we have a better future, a better present today compared to those who were taken to slavery. We welcome you all to today's program. Today, Saturday, is a day where we discuss the unification of Africa. We have a frank discussion amongst ourselves, a conversation around why we are not united when we should be united. For it is clear to some of us, from the radical Pan-Africanist perspective, that the strategic security of Africa lies in the unification of Africa. Now, even if we form regional blocs and have regional integrated political unions, the imperialists will use them against us. They will stoke rivalry and they will incite wars amongst various regions of Africa. Therefore, the continental unification of Africa, the whole of Africa, from north to the south, is the only solution that will safeguard our strategic security. We have realized that not all Africans are discussing the unification of the continent, although it is the most important item today on our agenda. Ordinary Africans in marketplaces, in mosques, churches, in their workplaces, in their farms, and so on, are not discussing the unification of Africa. And so the purpose of this initiated CSG Saturday conversation is to help initiate a Africa-wide discussion, indeed a global discussion. It only takes one country, it only takes one region, it only takes one group, it only takes a few individuals to start. And sometimes, like a small fire, they set off a conflagration that can destroy forests and whole nations. So we believe that we are starting something that hopefully will initiate a continental-wide discussion of the unification of Africa, not only on the African soil, but also in the diaspora. So thank you all for coming. Hope you'll be part of this conversation. The topic, as always, is Africa unification, analyzing regional and continental efforts. So we'll start with Brother Pigeon sharing what we have discovered is a publication on the continent, and share that with us, and then we'll take it from there. Brother Pigeon, over to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Brother Kwame, and revolutionary greetings once again to comrades who are joining us today. From wherever you are joining us, actually, you can indicate in our chat list. Just introduce yourself in the chat, tell us where you're joining us from. I know some of you are here, but I don't know all. But allow me also to acknowledge the presence of Brother Jacob. I don't know where he's joining us from. Brother Isaac, I know he's joining us from Malawi. Uje Edemeng, Michael Nems, Leonard Anyebuchi, I know he's joining us from Nigeria. Brother Coco from the Republic of Lesotho, but in diaspora. Brother Joseph from actually the Caribbean. Brother Jay, I believe, is from Ghana. Amani from Kenya. Renumi from also Nigeria, and Adai also from probably, I'm not sure about that. So can you introduce yourself in your chat so that we know where you're joining us from? Because today our conversation is going to take almost a 360 degree about Africa, right from the west, the central, which you call the north. So we want to take the efforts of Africa, look at efforts from unification of Africa, right from this western part of the Africa, the northern part of the Africa, the central part of the Africa, the southern part of the Africa, and the eastern part of the Africa. What efforts are we making actually in order to realize the unification of Africa, both politically and economically? So it will be an open session, as Brother Kwame has said, an open session whereby you will share with us, if you know anything, of the efforts those region ECOWAS is making towards the unification of either ECOWAS region and the whole of Africa as a large. And that is where we are going to. So before I go to that extent, of course, thank you very much, Brother Kwame, the chair of our class. And as you said again, we are a philosophical and ideological class. The purpose for us actually to come up with a Saturday class for the unification is because our class is called Consciousism Study Class. We study conscience, which is the book written by Kwame Nkrumah, but it's not the book. It is the philosophy and the ideology for decolonizing Africa. And that ideology has three purposes: the liberation of Africa from total liberation of Africa from neocolonial yokes. We know very well that neocolonialism is still in Africa. The total unification of Africa into one continental government, not those small groupings. And that's why this class is meant to actually get more awareness on that second objective of our class, total unification of Africa. And we also discuss about the economic development of Africa. So those are the key areas that we actually have interest as a class. And therefore, we meet every Thursday, 7 p.m. GMT, to read the book, that philosophy of by Kwame Nkrumah, page by page, and share our thinking paragraph by paragraph. We've been doing this for the second round since last year, May, and we are going on every Thursday, 7 p.m. GMT. I'll share the link for our WhatsApp group for those who might want to join us and join the classes. You can also text me so that I can add you in our broadcast list so that any of our coming classes, you cannot miss the notification for that. But you also have, of course, a language class that we brought on Tuesday that I'm chairing to unite Africa to common language. And that class is for Kiswahili that I always teach and facilitate every Tuesday to Africans who are interested to learn Kiswahili as a language. These are all part of initiatives of CSG, which is a Consciousism Study Group. So without wasting my time, and because of the time as also, permit me to actually go straight to the magazine.
Rather, before you continue with the magazine, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of my senior brother, Achaba Adaisibo. Many may not know him, but he's the one that initiated in the UK what is called the Black History Month. And he's widely acknowledged as the soul, mind, and the person who actually put that on the map. So every month, every October in the UK, the contribution of Black people around the world is celebrated. And we are pleased to have him in our midst. Comrade Adaisibo, welcome. If you'd like to say a few words, please do so before we go on to the magazine, The Continent. Thank you.
Thank you very much for acknowledging my presence. I have been monitoring what you all have been doing, and it's important. And I congratulate you all for the consistency, because the struggle is very, very lonely. Very, very lonely and very, very difficult. I remember an occasion when, towards the last days of President Fidel Castro, I was so troubled that Castro was going to die before African leaders will pay tribute to him. But while he was alive, why don't we pay tribute to Castro and the people of Cuba for what they've done for Africa? So I went to the AU to try to get them to do something. Initially, they were excited, but later on, they felt cold feet because they did not want to offend the US and their NATO allies. So I had Plan B, and Plan B was Namibia. At that time, Namibia was very self-reliant, as not dependent on the IMF, World Bank for its budgetary support and all that. So I met with the SWAPO leadership and President Sam Nujoma, who had just retired, and shared with them my objective. Initially, there was some resistance because within SWAPO, again, the same concern, but something occurred to me, and I posed them the question, what do you all think would have happened to Africa and Pan-Africa if Nkrumah, after Ghana gaining independence, had said that he did not want to offend Britain, the US, and their NATO allies, and did not provide liberation camps in Ghana and all that for you all to come and pick yourself up and come back home and fight. And that stirred something in them. So they decided to use their Independence Day to give their highest honor to Fidel Castro and the people of Cuba. So it's not easy. And I'm saying this to encourage you to continue, because in 1944, 43, 44, 45, there were a handful, not more than 10, 15 at a time, sometimes 9. That is Nkrumah, Wallace Johnson, Sierra James, Padmore, and others. And they triggered the 5th Pan-African Congress. And then Nkrumah was asked to go to Ghana in December 1947, and that changed the course of history. And it was Nkrumah and Kojobo Otsio who left Liverpool to go to Ghana in December 1947. So what you are doing is important. Sometimes there may be 10, 5 of you, 15, 20, but you continue, you don't give up. You take inspiration from what Nkrumah was able to achieve together with his colleagues. So I'm saying this and being long-winded to serve as an inspiration for the seed that you are sowing. And conscientism is very key. There is conscientism phobia that has been placed, particularly in Ghana. You can't mention conscientism. They link it with everything bad, with communism, with socialism, with this. But you've taken the bold step to take a work under the theme of conscientism. And simply conscientism, as you said, is the ideology and philosophy for the decolonization and development of Africa. And I keep saying that for Africa to regain its humanity and sense of self-worth and value, we have to dehumanize, we have to decolonize, we have to decolonize, we have to decolonize, and we have to take on the theme of Ngugi wa Thiong'o and others. They have been at it, and it's been lonely, very, very lonely, but they are making impact. So please continue. I wish you all well. I'm glad that I've joined you. Thank you very much, Kwame.
Thank you very much, senior brother Adasibo. Yeah, but Adasibo is my senior. He's been at it, as you can see. He's been a great contributor to the African Revolution, and you can see from his experiences and what he shared. And I thought, as he's joined us, that we'll hear from him. I'm very pleased we've captured his encouragement on video, on our recording, which we shall share widely. Comrade, thank you very much for joining us. Please feel free to stay and contribute to the discussion later. Just so everyone knows, once again, Comrade Adasibo is the one that initiated what in England or the UK is called Black History Month. It is a month when in all schools and in almost every areas in the UK, the contribution of Black people, and now they include brown people, is celebrated. And that was a huge achievement. And some people see it as part of the project to decolonize the UK's curriculum. So I thought I'd put that on record once again. Brother Pigeon, back to you. It's 7:24 GMT. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brother Kwame. And thank you very much, Brother. The name might be hard for me to pronounce, but
Adasibo.
Adaisibo, yes, Adaisibo. We appreciate your presence, and actually, you appreciate you joining us today. I don't know how you came across it, but I believe it is through the platforms we have, and we welcome you to be with us also. So thank you very much, brother. We always, of course, came in with this tendency to look around the continent to get the updates and the current news across the continent. And we've come across this magazine that is called The Continent. So The Continent produce their newsletters every week to actually talk about what's going on in the continent. And this week, to look at the happenings that they capture in this week. So this is the storyline in the continent. And let me go to Nigeria. They start with Nigeria, whereby they say that Nigerian police rescued 6 members of family kidnapped earlier this month, but 2 had already been murdered by their kidnappers, who demanded $70,000 ransom dollars. The armed conflict location and event database tracked 578 incidences of abduction across the country in 2023 alone. So that's also a clear case that's come out from Nigeria. When you go to Zimbabwe, there's a story here that the opposition leader from Zimbabwe have actually resigned from his party, which is called Citizens Coalition for Change. And he had resigned from the party that he founded around 2 years ago. And this is the main opposition party in Zimbabwe. So we don't know why he resigned, but he has actually indicated his intentions to continue be politically active. When you go to Rwanda, out from UK, which you can call neocolonialism, the United Kingdom Prime Minister, of course, Rishi Sunak, instructed his party parliamentary chief whip to reprimand the 11 ruling party rebels, MPs, opposing his Rwanda treaty. So this one, you know very well, the tweet about sending some people from UK to Rwanda. In Liberia, of course, we have the inauguration of Liberian 79-year-old new president, Joseph Boakai, ended abruptly when he was led away from the podium after suffering from heat exhaustion. Boakai had taken the oath of office, but was midway through his speech when he was overcome by the sweltering heat in Monrovia on Monday. His aides said that he has since recovered. So that's also from there. From Zambia, we are seeing that 7 people might be feared dead in the mine shaft. And what you have to know that these mine shafts are actually owned by Chinese companies in Zambia called Macrolink Mine in Dola under the construction, when the mud and water flooded into the shaft, trapping the 2 Chinese and 5 Zambians. So it says that in December, 41 miners were trapped and killed in Siseli mine in Chingola following heavy rains and landslides. We know that these mines are actually not operated by Africans. Now, in Egypt, there's a problem in the Horn of Africa, where Egypt is now weighing in to the Ethiopia-Somaliland issue. In the last week, we recorded that Ethiopia wants an access to the port. So the Somaliland, which is not actually which is somehow part of Somalia, that want to claim their independence, has actually got into agreement with Ethiopia to give them some space for access to the 20-kilometer stretch to access the port. Now, actually, Egypt is coming in to actually support Somalia, because Somalia country is against Ethiopia recognizing Somaliland, which is not actually a recognized government, is a secession from Somalia. So Egypt is coming in to support Somalia to actually refuse the grant to give Ethiopia access to the port. You know, Egypt and Ethiopia are having issues with the IGAD. Then when you go to Nigeria, it says that Aliko Dangote is still the richest person in Africa. Then in the culture, we have Aliko Dangote is now controlling 13.9 billion estimate dollars. Then in the music sector and film sector, we are actually having 2 what they call 2 best documentaries featuring in this year's Oscar award, which is The 4 Daughters by Tunisia director and the Bobby Wine film called The People's President. So we'll be seeing how that will be going. Then we move along to Ghana. Britain is loaning Ghana their crown jewels that it stole. So Britain stole what they are now loaning Ghana. And so it says that in a show of goodwill, 2 British museums are lending their Ashanti jewels and artifacts back to Ghana. They are lending 150 years after they were looted. The pieces comprising of 32 items of royal regalia will be displayed in Manhia Palace Museum in Kumasi. The museum are banned by UK law from permanently returning items to their countries of origin. In South Africa, of course, man has been arrested in connection with the devastating fire that killed around 77 people. Then in Malawi, there's something in Malawi that I'm trying to see if I can reach out to it. Let me see. Yeah, the Chakwera's red carpet is stolen. So the president is looking for his red carpet. The African typical president. Then let's go to Eritrea. In Eritrea, of course, the story about Eritrea is the imprisonment of journalists. They say that Eritrea is still leading country in imprisonment of so many journalists across the world. So remember, there was a journalist that was in prison there from Sweden, Eritrean journalist called Awati Isaac, whose detention ranks among the longest imprisonment of journalists in the world. So if you go to actually Sudan, there's this rebel leader from the Janjaweed called Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, who has been moving around the countries, is a leader of a rebel group in Sudan. Well, you know, we have the transitional government in Sudan. So this president has been moving around the neighboring countries, greeting everybody and making coalitions and agreements and talks with the neighboring countries. It is being recorded that, of course, South Africa, Ramaphosa president decided actually to put on their Twitter when they met this rebel leader that they had met the Sudan's president, something that actually caused serious tension there. We know what's going on in Sudan, and the war in Sudan is becoming an issue for us. So Ramaphosa meeting the Janjaweed leader, the rebel leader, and posting it that he met the Sudan's president, and that Janjaweed leader, Mohammed Hemdit, actually, you know, the many killings and the deaths that has been caused in Sudan. He was in Kenya, he was given a red carpet, he was in Uganda. When Kenya welcomed him, the Sudan recalled their ambassador from Kenya. So there's problem there. In Cameroon, they are saying, of course, we are trying to discover the medicine for malaria. The vaccine for malaria is coming out. Then in the case of South Africa. So when we know this case has been going on at the IGAD for some time, but now we are having some, of course, some information that the International Court of Justice has found that Israel action in its war in Gaza fall under the scope of genocide. So that's also something recorded. I know most of us have had this information, and it said that it has issued a series of provisional orders to prevent genocide from taking place. The highly anticipated judgment in that case of South Africa brought against Israel was delivered on Friday at The Hague. We know that one member voted against that, and that is a member of the bench from Uganda. And they say that this is the first black woman to be sitting, I don't know, amongst the judges, and actually now voted against South Africans is against Israel. And the Uganda government have actually disowned her position and says that that is her position, and the Uganda government actually stand with South Africa's position. So that's what we see here. There's a story of TB Joshua. I know many people have been hearing about what revelation coming out from TB Joshua. There is also the Germany story with supporting the Israel, and now the Namibian part are bringing this on what actually Germany did in the Herero people. And that's also captured. Then basically, there's a renovation of Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park. I've never been there. I hope one day I'll be there. So they say that there is a renovation of the park in downtown Accra, topped with the itinerary and any visitors to Ghana. So that's also, they are talking about that. So basically, that's pure side of it. And more issues are just the Willeming and Story areas. So I'll end it there. Brother Kwame?
Yeah, Brother Pidgin, I noticed that the Sudan, I know the Sudan, the fight between the Sudanese, within the Sudanese government itself has not been covered by the story. Anyway, so that is the news from the continent. I don't know what members here think about what we are hearing, but for us in the CSG, our question is, how does the news reflect the state of Africa as far as our unification is concerned? We also noticed, Brother Pidgin, that there's very little in West Africa, the Sahel region, Burkina Faso, Mali, and so on, and what Chad and what they are doing. But anyway, thank you. So what is the next thing we are moving on to? Do we go into discussions? Is there a presentation from anyone?
We can have actually reactions to the news. Then I'll do a brief documented records on the efforts of each region. Then we open up the conversation for people now to give in. I have some little data on what East Africa is doing, ECOWAS and the rest. So I'll do that short part of it and around 15 minutes. Then we open up now the conversation, because today's conversation is geared towards we as Africans. Are we really feeling that there's enough effort being made by those so-called regional blocs and even AU towards the unification of Africa politically and economically? And if we feel so, what do we think must be done? That's where the direction of our conversation is.
Okay, so we'll open the floor then for people's contributions to the news around the continent that we've had. Let me start off by saying that Museveni, president of Uganda, he says he's a Pan-Africanist. We have no reason to doubt that he is. But for us in CSG, he's a certain type of Pan-Africanist. He is what we will call a conservative liberal Pan-Africanist. And so these are the Africans that are more interested in governing Africa now and now than preparing Africa for the future. And in his case, he doesn't believe that we should unite continentally. He believes in regional integration. The only thing I see is that I don't see any effort on his part to form an East African political union. So far, unless someone here does, you can share it with us. But I do not see Uganda in a political union with Rwanda, Kenya, and the others. So if East regional political integration or union is the way forward, as the regionalists believe, why aren't we seeing, for example, a West African political union, rather than a call for war, as we saw when what happened in Mali, Burkina Faso, and so on? Why isn't there a political union? So the regionalists say they believe in regional union, and yet we don't see any regional union. Even a regional currency is not even happened. It hasn't even happened. I mean, in West Africa, we now have a regional passport. So I have an ECOWAS passport, but we don't have a currency that you can use in the whole of West Africa. I think it's the same for West Africa, North Africa, and so on. So the regionalists, we believe, are just stalling continental unification. They are just putting that forward as a kind of a block to the real work that needs to be done. So that is
Comrade Kwame, we have Comrade Nuat from Sudan. Comrade Nuat is a member here from Sudan, and you've asked about Sudan. Yeah. So maybe before we take questions, if he can be allowed, ask if he can be allowed to say something from Sudan.
Yeah, that's fine. I think he should see what he has to say as part of responding to the news that you've just covered. Thank you.
Okay, so Comrade Nuat, you'll go first, and then you go to Comrade Joseph after Nuat. Comrade Nuat?
Okay, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, according to the location that you have. Am I clear now?
Yes, carry on.
Thank you. My name is Galwak. That's from South Sudan, particularly also from Sudan, because South Sudan was a part of Sudan. It's my great pleasure to meet you, my great comrade, today. Before I say on the concern of Sudan or what the situation we have been facing now in the Sudan, I suppose to say something on my behalf as the youth of Africa. Africa is a continent in which is rich of the resource. Africa is a continent in which have no problem the population of the youth. But we have a problem because our money has been captured, our money has been locked. So we have been in the place in which we are not see what we can do at the use of Africa. I do appreciate the co-ponder, the youth whom are participating in this, because I've been seeing that African need to be moved in the direction which will change the world, and even that will lead the people to believe that Africa is a continent that have heroes. It is not only the Kwame Nkrumah of the Ghana, not only the Kadel, the Patrick Lumumba of the Congo, not also like Amel Cabral of Guinea-Bissau, but African are the youth whom will make the successful of our forefather whom they did. This is a brief point that I want to give us. We are the African and the situation that we are in now need youth like me and you to make the change. Now in the Sudan, the situation between the Imeti, who then guys called Ahmed Imeti Daglo, who is the rebel leader, and also the president, who is Burhan al-Fatah, the leader of the interim chairman. The situation is now going to the worst stage. You may see in the media, also you may see in others set up, even though they're not bringing the intention for us, with the youth, to know what is going in Africa. The situation in Sudan, it is two variables in which going to drastic situation. The people are now facing the shortage of supply. All this is taking the place. All the bombard is taking the place. Destruction also there, which is too emotional, in which thousands of people has been dying and all the thousands are leaving the country. Now they are here in South Sudan. They went to the Uganda. Even they are there in Kenya. Also they've been went there in the Djibouti. Also the Eritrea. Also in the Ethiopia. Now, what I've been seeing, there's no way. Even African Union have nothing. IGAD have nothing. SADC have nothing. ECOWAS have nothing, in which they can also bring down the two warring parties and just to make peace to take the place. The situation in Sudan, it is a situation which is too complicated. Recently, the Burhan, who is the leader chairman of the Sudan, suspended his membership from IGAD due to the participation of the Imeti, who is the rebel leader. A rebel leader was making a negotiation with William Ruto of the Kenya, also with the Uhuru Kenyatta of Museveni. Also, he met up to the source of the South Africa president. But in that process, when the Burhan see the guy is moving with other African leaders, instead to make the peace, then he suspend his membership because he said that guy is a rebel. Why you go to make peace with the rebel? If you want peace and the permanent to take the place in Sudan, you're supposed to contact me, and then I can come to you and tell you the way forward for peace to take the place in the country. So I'm not longer to be recognized by the IGAD, because IGAD was not even involved me to the meeting of others that was taking the place last weeks in Uganda. So now the situation is too worse due to the suspension of the membership of the Sudan in the IGAD, and also Burhan does not want peace to take the place. Even the day for yesterday, there was a great bombing in the Nyala, near to the border of the south and north, in which also the great university was distracted. Even yesterday, people has been brought, the more casualty also. Situation in Sudan, it is not expected to take the place or to be climbed in the good condition as the way I've been seen here. This is concern of the brief point of the Sudan, and all of us has been having clue on this. If I come to what I want to say before I be routed to our forum, that if the admin should allow me to have something, I personally am African. I born in Africa, and I know solution Africa should not be solved by the angel of God came from heaven and to the ground. Oh, Lord Almighty, give me the power to do what I can. Not only the praying, not only the fasting, but with the effort that I'm supposed to have as a son of the continent. So what I've been seeing before, some of our colleagues said, what is the contribution of the IGAD, of the ECOWAS, of the SADC, of the African Union? So what are your suggestions on this? Because I will not have other time, then I should give other opportunity to my colleague. I should also recommend on this. So on my own analysis of the person for the concern of the African Union, they do nothing. PLO said there's toothless and bulldog. Exactly, they are that fit to be given that name because they have done nothing to us. Africans are dying 24/7. We have been saying that we have agenda of 2064, that they have not do even the step in which can show that our leaders are in the motion to change the content that we are in now. The world problem was not started in Africa. The refugees were started in the French in 1647. There is the European war in which they mislead the world, say World War. It was fought in the Europe. There is Japanese war. There's the Crimean war. These all war were fought in the Europe. But when the European citizen, the European youth, they see the situation will not go longer, they sit down, they ask themselves, what are we going to do? Are we born to suffer, or we are born to serve the life of our people? The European, they serve their life and they become the world recognized. The same to us, we the African. We are not a people who have been subordinate. We are not born to be inferior. what I want to recommend to you as my fellow youth, the comrade of the movement, whom will make this country to be a better place for all of us, we need to rise in the power, in the position. Never wait to look for what our leader can do. We all see that they're running to beg the Westerners for our resource. We see that they're running the Westerners to show them for what they can do, even in the plan of the agriculture. We have land, we have whatever. Even here in the Sudan, in South Sudan, the land, our land has been taken through helicopter from here to Europe, to Germany, to Australia, and to other parts of the world to plant. And we are dying, in which the land is a Mother African land. So as the youth, this is not an easy task. We all need to be serious in every action in which we need to rise in the position. Let us not just talk in the media, let us put in the action. When you get the window, broke that window, go on it, do what can benefit the African, not what can benefit you. Because we see what Kwame was done, the great man of the continent. Kwame hold the view, Patrick Lumumba hold the view, and all leaders hold the view. But we need to fulfill, to put in what? In the whole. So I need to have a topic, but I will have it one day, one time, especially on the coming weekend. So I supposed to lecture on what's as my thought. So Africa Union have nothing, IGAD have nothing, but what we can do is let us rise the position. Let us mobilize our youth. Let us commit what we can do. So let God bless the vision of Africa, and God bless you.
Thank you, comrade. The elders in the room can now confirm that the young people are woken up. Brother Kwame, the young people are waking up. So it's a great pleasure to listen to the fellow young people from the continent.
Yes. I mean, together we fight. That's all I would say. Thank you. All right, let's open the floor. Let's hear other views. I think Brother Joseph's hand was up, and then we'll go to Mankuyo.
Yes, thank you very much, and good afternoon, good morning, good night to everyone. The question was asked, what are reaction to the news? In the case of the judge, the Ugandan judge, I can see from someone in the diaspora, it is very despicable, it's very disheartening to have seen, somebody that looks like you, somebody that's also represents you, go against the grain, and even in the case of the Israeli judge, there's one issue where he voted in favor of it and she voted against it, something else, and it shows that we have a long way to go. In addition, we have had Grenada, my island or country, have been linked to a scandal, Nigeria this week, where some billionaire, I don't remember her name, some multi-billionaire or billionaire person came and have a birthday party on one of those tourist islands in Grenada, which I think for a night is $132,000 US for a night. And you had the governor of Lagos joining her, abandoning it with, apparently he did that secretly, and that's a controversy in Lagos now. I was disappointed that I didn't hear Comrade Pigbin mention anything about the ruling of the court in relation to the attempt or the intention of transporting or shipping or whatever Kenyan police to Haiti. This is very dear to my heart, and I really would have liked that to be highlighted, because I think that although there was question whether the Kenyan government will accede to the ruling of the court, I think that is significant. Thank you.
Yeah, can I say that Brother Pigeon was sharing the magazine, The Continent, and that's why we have opened the room for us to contribute. So what you have said, Brother Joseph, see it as your contribution to the news in Africa, rather than a criticism of Brother Pigeon not sharing that news.
Brother Kwame.
Yes.
I can share about Kenya. It was not captured in that magazine, but of course I've shared it widely, that one of my friends who was a presidential aspirant, co-presidential aspirant, actually moved to court last year to question Kenya's move to take soldiers to Haiti on constitutional basis.
Yes.
And he claimed to court that the constitutions do not give the framework for the government to send a police department for an overseas mission. Now, the ruling was slotted to be this month, 26th. Therefore, the court before halted the process by the government to prepare for that mission. But the government, even during that that what called injunction period, the government still proceeded to ask the parliament to approve the mission. And now the ruling was made yesterday. Out of another 3 rulings that were anti-government ruling were made yesterday. And one was that the court found out that there was no constitutional basis for the government to send out the mission officers to Haiti. The court found it to be unconstitutional. But also the court ruled another ruling on the health sector to be unconstitutional, housing to be unconstitutional, where the president has come out in public to say that he will not respect that court order on construction of housing. So we don't know if he will also respect the court order on stopping to send soldiers to Haiti. So that's the information from that news.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, brother. But I think what Brother Joseph was saying is that when you shared the initial news on Africa, the continent, you did not share that. That's what he was saying. But he recognizes that you do share it. You share it in the WhatsApp group and so on. I think that that was the point he was making. But thank you for now sharing that news. So if anybody wants to contribute that news and any other news, please feel free to do so. Brother Munkuyo, please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yes, revolutionary greetings to everybody in the house.
Thank you. Yeah, welcome.
Yeah, revolutionary greetings to everybody. I greet you in the name of our ancestors. I greet you in the name of the rising sun, which is Al-Kebul and Africa. It's another day that we also having this important discussion about the way forward on the Africa unit. Remember that Africa is waiting nobody to liberate or to free, but it is only us. Us, we should commence, we should pull the trigger and say enough is enough. So this is our COMESA and I'm from Kenya. Many knows me. So I would like to chip into the news that are happening, and there is also something that I want to add in Kenya because it is something that is trending all over here in Kenya. Apart from the house levy, the criminal taxation that the state wanted to impose to the working class, that was declared unconstitutional, and also the sending 1,000 troops. We know it was a deal that was facilitated by the United States of America. They were given 14.7 million to do so, billion to do so, USD. But there's a question that I was asking about the same. Already William Ruto and his rotten regime, they have already swallowed 14.7 billion that were given by the Joe Biden. And the court has declared sending the troops to Haiti as their constitutional. Where will the money go? Since the deal has terribly failed. That's the question that I was also asking myself today. So we are waiting because he said today that he won't respect the court. He will continue executing the housing levy as he started. So let's wait if he'll continue. And this is a great call because I've been always talking even with Comrade Pigbin that we have been seeing a lot of people protesting against the Israelis, Palestine, whatever, here in the country, but we have not seen anybody who has ever expressed solidarity with the Haiti, or even someone who has never taken any step showing the solidarity in the road about this Haiti issue. And we know that it has been a very critical issue since Haiti has been a revolutionary country that has been always fighting against the cannibalists, the United States of America, since from 1845, when they had the war with the France. After the France, then it is now the United States of America. So that's what I've been discussing with people, but I think one time we'll organize a solidarity march here in Kenya towards the Haiti revolutionary people. So another thing that today we saw in Kenya, it was hitting the news, the headlines. There was a protest by women who are calling themselves femicide. So we had around 6 cases whereby women were killed. There were some of them, they were brutally murdered. There was even another 24-year-old who was killed by someone. A suspect was termed as a Nigerian, and her body parts were taken. So the suspect was arrested and was suspected to be a Nigerian. So the investigation are still ongoing. The relevant authority are still having the same matter. So today we had a demonstration whereby women are saying that stop killing women. And at the same time, there is a scenario here in Kenya whereby men are also being killed. Whenever you see whenever a man killed in Kenya, even 2 days ago, there was also a man who was stabbed to death in Nakuru by 2 women. But we have not seen any case. So whatever the point that I'm trying to bring out is the point whereby this kind of feminism or this kind of Western ideologies that is trying to get highly roots in Africa, because you can see that was, if you see critically, it wasn't something that should be a protest, but this is something that should be addressed that in a community, or is something that I should address not only in their protest, because men are also being killed. If you see, there were many of them, those ladies who were killed in the lodgings, so A and B's, A, B and B's. That's where they have been killed. So most of them, I can say, most of them, a number of them, they are sex workers. So whenever they get there, they'll just bargain with their customers. So when the deal goes wrong, that is where they start killing each other. But today, whatever we saw in the street, it is a lot of group of feminists and also from LGBTQ society. Even the flyer itself was written because I saw the flyer the poster that they were showing, they were sent it to people that there will be a protest today.
Yep. Brother Munkuyo, yeah. It seems to me your main news is about your concern about Western ideologies infiltrating Africa. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
That's your main concern, yeah?
Yeah, so that's what I mean.
Can you link that with the unification of Africa for us in terms of what is going on?
Yeah, no. That's not the unification of Africa, because
I'm asking you to relate it to unification of Africa or to liberation. That's
all right. Yeah, so basically, as far as I'm concerned, that we are fighting for the same cause. We don't have any gender that is stronger than another. So basically, today we have seen a big division between men. There's a certain group of women that are being incited against men. Because to me, it was just to be said that end the killing, but it wasn't supposed to be gender-based violence. So I can see that it's a great division, because when we are divided, the enemy can come and infiltrate us easily than when we are united. So today what we've seen LGBTQ society, they're also there. So I was wondering, how does the LGBTQ society concerned with this protest? So those are the things.
Thank you very much. I mean, it is a case, isn't it, that women on the whole are still dominated in Africa. It is a fact that African women are not yet totally liberated. And we take your point that we are all one. The African woman, the African man, we're all one. We are all under neo-colonial domination, and therefore we must all come together to fight. We have a view to. We have told our sisters, whether Sister Marlene is here, Sister Ida is also here, to help organize a women's conference, so that we can be seen, and we do, because we are also interested in you see, the liberation of Africa is a liberation of men and women. The unification of Africa ultimately is about the unification of men and women of Africa. And you see, so the work we are doing ultimately is about humanity. And so your point is made, and we accept your point that we're all one, and we should all fight together. So thank you very much for sharing your views. Let's go to the time is 8 o'clock. So before we will, I suppose let's ask Brother Pigeon to Charles Ali. I didn't see your hand is up, but let's ask Brother Pigeon to share what he wanted to share, and then we'll move on from there. But before he does so, shall we hear the African Union anthem? Thank you.
Let us all unite and celebrate together the victories won for our liberation. Let us dedicate ourselves to rise together to defend our liberty and unity. Oh, sons and daughters of Africa, flesh of the sky and flesh of the sky, let us make Africa the tree of life. Let us all unite and sing together to uphold the bonds that frame our destiny, our destiny. Let us dedicate ourselves to fight together for lasting peace and justice on earth. Oh, sons and daughters of Africa, flesh of the sun and flesh of the sky, let us make Africa the tree of life. Let us all unite and toil together to give the best we have to Africa, the cradle of mankind and fount of culture, our pride and hope at break of dawn. Oh, sons and daughters of Africa, flesh of the sun and flesh of the sky, let us make Africa the tree of life.
Brother Pigeon, I hope YouTube will not tell us why we prayed our own anthem.
If they say that, they should take YouTube to US.
Thank you, Brother Pigeon. Can you share what you wanted to share?
Okay, thank you. I want to give a startup insight on what efforts are recorded having been made by various regional blocs towards the unification and political unification of Africa together with economic unification.
Thank
I'll be
you.
very
I'd like
open.
thank you. I'd like to tell Brother Charles that he would contribute once you have said what you have to say. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So let's check on the East African region. The EAC made in an economic integration, they had what you call custom union in 2005, which established a single custom territory, eliminating tariffs and other barriers for trade between member states. This boosted, of course, that's what they did in 2005, but still you realize that there's conflict between Kenya refusing either milk from Uganda getting to Kenya, Tanzania banning roasting our chickens for crossing the border. So those are still things that are going on. They also signed what we call a common market in 2010, which allows the free movement of goods, services, capital, labor across the region. But this is still also not clearly going on because people are still having to come in with their passports from either Burundi, whatever, and those questions. There's also, they signed in what you call East African Monetary Union Protocol in 2013, which lays the groundwork for a single currency. It was planned that that currency should be attained by 2028, since 2013. So that is still not yet attained. The political and social integration, there's an East African Political Federation where the head of states adopted a roadmap towards a political federation in 2010. So they wanted to form a political unit. I think there was some times back I heard there was a team that came in Kenya for what you call public participation, how do people think about having one political unit in East African region. This was to actually include establishment of common institution, harmonizing policies, and eventually creating a single East African Parliament and President. But we have, of course, East African Parliament that is seated. I know there are members of Parliament from Kenya. In peace and security, of course, the East African region has deployed. In peace and security, the East African region has deployed what we call peacekeeping missions in other states. But also we find that there's accusation that some East African community are engaged. You know, now Congo joined the East African Community bloc and Somalia also joined. But still realize that even as we talk of peacekeeping mission, there's still some group where in Congo, Uganda, Rwanda are claimed to be part of the issues there. So we don't really see if that political unity, peace and unity is there. In infrastructure, the East African invested in a joint infrastructure projects, like of course cross-border pipeline or road. There's also cooperation, like East African also signed what we call the tripartite agreement with COMESA and SADC. So we're also seeing regions trying to sign agreement with other regions so that they form a bigger region. And that included, of course, a trading area of 26 countries in East Africa, or in Africa. There's also the participation in the what you call African free trade area. So that is also a plan where East African community has joined, where they want to achieve a free trade area by 2025. So, of course, that's the efforts being made by East African region. If you go to ECOWAS, they also signed what we call Custom Union in 1975, which established a single market for goods and services among member states. There are also common external tariffs, which was signed in 1990 to introduce a standardized tariffs on goods imported from outside the region. There's also Monetary Union Protocol, which was signed in 2003, which was aiming towards establishing single currency by 2027, which they call the ECO Plan for 2027. There's also the political and social integration side, but let me check from the political side a bit. Okay, the political integration side, they're talking about issues to do with the ECOWAS Parliament, which was established in 2000. There's also conflict resolution that they have engaged as ECOWAS, but in some places they wanted to invade in Niger. I know we know that, but they have done peacekeeping missions in Liberia and Sierra Leone. We don't know whether they were peacekeeping missions or what they were, but they claim to be peacekeeping missions. They've also been trying to implement what we call free movement of people, which is a visa-free regime. And there's also cooperation with the union also. So African Union, which is of course a key contributor, ECOWAS is a key player there. So they've also signed that agreement, African Union. And there's also what we call the Mano River Union, a sub-regional grouping within ECOWAS, focusing on deep economic and political integration among Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea. So we are seeing even regional groups also still going down to form another regions, another unions within the regional groupings. That's basically what you can see within what I can grasp very fast within ECOWAS. If you go to SADC, SADC also signed what you call a free trade area in 1994. They also signed SADC Custom Union in 2004. There was SADC Development Fund in 1980. And the SADC Regional Infrastructure Development and Master Plan, which is RDMP, which aims to create a seamless network of transport, energy, communication infrastructures. In political, they have SADC Parliamentary Forum, which was established in 1997. They have SADC Protocol of Peace and Security in 2001. They have SADC Election Observers. They have also SADC Regional HIV Strategy. Then also they have cooperated with other members, of course, AU and COMESA and EAC. That's what I can easily grasp from SADC. But I don't know, or let me check what COMESA is doing, because I'm trying to get quick data on that. So in COMESA, if you check what COMESA is doing within the region, we will get that COMESA in terms of economic custom, they signed it in 2005.
Which region, PJ, which part of the region which part of Africa does COMESA cover?
COMESA is the Central Africa.
Okay, do we have one for North Africa?
Yeah.
Is there a regional block for North Africa?
There was, I don't know if it's called MAGREB. Now let me check. So COMESA, I'm from East, I've gone to West, I've gone to South, I'm in the Central. IGAD is the north part of North Africa. So there's IGAD, which forms upper part of East Africa. So let's go to, first of all, the COMESA, where they have custom union in 2005. They have common markets in 2010. They signed a common market. They had East African Monetary Protocol, which they signed together with the COMESA to join the East African region. So they also have the political, which is COMESA Head of States Summits. They also have peace and security. They have infrastructure development summit or conferences, and they have also members of African Continental, what you call African Continental AFTCA. That's what COMESA are doing. But you see, North is divided because there's IGAD, which is part of North, but actually the Horn of Africa. And if you check what IGAD has been doing also, include, of course, free area, which they signed. There's also IGAD signed what you call the Infrastructure Development Plan, which is the LAPSET Corridor and the East African Power Pool. There's regional development, which was established in 1980, which is established what we call IGAD Development Fund. There's conflict resolution, which of course some of the community talked about. There's migration management, the security cooperation. They also have regional programs. They also cooperate with AU and East African regions. So we see regions also cooperating. But there's another one on this region called MAGREB. Let me check it. Because I think that one is the upper region of Africa. So this one include MAGREB is the northern regional bloc, which include Algeria, Morocco, Mauritania, Tunisia, and Libya. So they also have Arab Maghreb Union, which is AMU, which was established in 1989. They also have free trade agreements. They have what we call Mediterranean cooperation, which Maghreb countries actively participate in initiatives like the Union of Mediterranean. They also seek collaboration with other European nations. There's political integration, dialogue, and cooperations. They also have security cooperations, cultural exchange, and they also have Economic Commission of Africa, which is ECA, which they do cooperation with, and the South-South cooperation, which is a part of the Maghreb. Most of the challenges this aspect face include political tension, economic disparities, and security concerns. That's a general challenge that face this union. So we have the Maghreb, we have the COMESA, we have the IGAD, we have the SADC, we have the ECOWAS, and we have EAC. That's a very fast summary of what efforts they're trying to make. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And so based on what you said, what really, I don't get a sense that we are moving towards a Central African government. Anyway, let's hear from others. So what we are saying is that China is about 1.4 billion human beings, and they have one central government for the entire Chinese people.
Chair, your audio is having some problem. There's a serious echo in your audio. There's a serious problem in your audio.
Yeah, my apologies. Is it better now?
Yeah, now it's clear. You can proceed.
Yeah, thank you. So I was saying that what we are saying is that China, which is 1.4 billion people or thereabouts, has one central government, one central Chinese government. Yeah, and Africa, which is about 1.3 billion people or thereabouts, has 55. Yes, you heard me. 55 separate governments. Now, I don't think we need rocket science to explain to us that having one central government rationalizes a lot of functions and reduces waste and so on and so forth. So our position is that we need a continental government. We want to move away from Kenya, Ghana, Gambia, Sierra Leone, and so on. I'm told that Gambia as a nation is as big as Lagos in in Nigeria. So the population of Gambia as a nation is the same as Lagos in Nigeria. Nigeria has over 200 million citizens, 36 states. Ghana is one state, Liberia, one state. All these separate states. Nigeria alone has 36, yeah, with one federal government. So the argument that we can't have one federal government for the whole continent basically has, for us, does not make any sense. When you take into account our strategic security, you know, the imperialists will play us like ball. They will stoke rivalry. They will stoke war, because that is what they are good at. Because whilst you are fighting, they are stealing your resources. That's what they are very good at. Anyway, so our position CSG is that we need one continental government. And what we have heard in terms of the efforts that are being made, we don't see that those as efforts being made towards our central continental government. All right, let's hear from what. Let's hear from others. Thank you, Brother Charles. You can come in now. Thank you. Charles Ali.
Yes, thank you, comrades. I'm Charles Ali from Republic of South Sudan. I just feel like I want to build up my points on what my brother from the same country has stated before in regards to the current situations in Sudan as our mother country. You know, having looked at the war.
What we are interested in, Charles, what we are interested in is this. Recently, there was war within the government itself, yeah, of Sudan. That's what we understand. And news on that war has not been consistent. So we don't know what is happening. And what others have said is that Africans don't seem to be concerned with the killings and the fighting going on in Sudan. So can you kind of let us know what is going on at the governmental level in Sudan?
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, comrades, and Chair for bringing out this. You know, what is going on currently in Sudan, because I'm currently bordering Sudan and South Sudan on humanitarian missions. We had a teams that has been displaced because around the bordering point, as my brother was talking about, there was a clashes at the border recently, just close to South Sudan, and we sent a team even today that is monitoring the internal displaced person, because it's also close to South Sudan border. And again, what from the look of things, as my colleague stated before, what we have learned of this is there are actors, regional actors who are behind Sudan war. If you look at critically, we analyze like there is a new colonialism that is coming currently in the context of Sudan, because after reviewing, you find even most of the African countries, include Egypt, is part of the team which is gearing the war and the crisis that is happening in Sudan. There are a number of actors that are currently involved in the Sudan war to ensure that Sudan war haven't bring out a peaceful coexistence to the people of Sudan. If you look at Egypt, Egypt is one of the country that has deeply shortlisted as political towards Sudan, which also are creating contributions undergoing the displacements and the destruction that is happening. They are supporting the regime president. And if you look again critically, you look at the AU is also supporting this conflict. If you look again into the same conflict, you find that United States and Russia, United States, Russia, and Israel, they also gearing this conflict of Sudan. When looking at the analysis of this conflict, you find like this conflict has been interrupted by the big fish, and with their common interests in because of the resources Sudan is having
So,
currently.
yeah. So has the internal fighting within the government itself, because the government that was formed from the two militaries, that fight, has it stopped or is it still going on?
The internal fighting within the government have not been stopped, but they've brought in a memorandum of understanding between the two forces.
Who brought it?
That has,
Who brought the MOU?
yeah, it's between the current regime president plus the armed commander. They have discussions that they had last let me say on Thursday, but they didn't come into consensus with both of them, but they remain calm. But despite still the two warring parties continue deteriorating the ground in Sudan. Yes, that
Okay.
is
And
the current
also,
situation
brother,
currently.
also what we want to know is, what is the African Union's role in all this? Because you stated that they are fueling the war. What is their position?
Okay, thank you for this. You know what we need to learn here as comrade is the position of African Union is determined from the Western world, because you know our African Union haven't enough resources to be able to manage the affairs of Africa. That's why you look at whenever any incident like the crisis that is happening in Sudan, you find African Union remain silent, because most of the resources that they were supposed to use to resolve African problems, all our resources are coming from Western part and US. And you know,
So what
these
is the
people are the
AU
ones
doing?
controlling.
So brother, what is the AU doing? Is it inciting the war? Is it harming anybody? What is the AU doing? We understand what you're saying, that it is resourced by foreign forces. So what is it doing on the ground?
I was not talking about a AU. AU remains on their position because they are silent. I was talking about the United Emirates. That is the United States of Arab Emirates is part of the team that are gearing towards in the war. But the AU remains silent in their position. They have not even responded on the current conflict. As my brother stated before, even the regime government has withdrawn their membership in the IGAD body, and the IGAD body is the one that could be able to support to resolve the Sudan issues. Despite the rebel groups have much interaction and engagement with some IGAD board country states like Uganda, South Africa, and the Kenya, they decided that why should the interim government of IGAD be able to engage with the rebel group minus the notice of the government? So it decided to withdraw their memberships, and this has also again gearing and towards the current conflict in Sudan.
Okay, can I ask you a final question? And this is our position at CSG. We believe that if we had one continental government with one continental armed forces, any such, if you like, military problem on the ground can be resolved by the African army. And an African army, what Nkrumah called the African High Command, basically will solve all these problems. What do you think about that?
Dear comrades, I think about this as an excellent ideas, because when looking at African problems, our African problem cannot be resolved by individual politicians. These individual politicians, they will be called for individuals meeting in UK, in Europe, in Asia, wherever they are going, and they can be able to convince. But us as African, coming as one body, we cannot be able to be convinced, because we shall be speaking as one word. We shall not be speaking as individual politicians. You look at African problems lies on the hands of these reckless politicians who are not aiming of bringing Africa the way we want. We have all the resources, we have everything. You know, most of our resources are the ones using to develop. You look at China, China is saying whether the powerful economical country. It's not because of China itself, it is because of the African resources. If you look at US, who have not used their resources for decades of years, who are investing in African resources and also looting African resources in terms of interventions. But if we come back to our sense and bring our board and becomes one, I think this will be able to resolve all African problems. We have problems across African continent because our individual leaders are fighting for their interests, not for the interests of their communities.
Thank you very much. And a Ghanaian friend of mine who is an ex-soldier told me that when the problem started in Liberia, is it Liberia or Sierra Leone, that it was ECOWAS that solved the problem, and the decisive factor was when the Nigerians arrived, because the Nigerian army, is very huge, and when they arrived, they solved the problem, and that's how the problem was solved. So this Sudan issue, we had an African army, and the Pigeon has looked at the numbers. If we had a united African army and we unite all the petty 55 armies, if we unite into one military, it would just solve this Sudan problem in a minute. It would take no time. We'll solve it. And anyone's starting trouble on the continent in terms of military, we'll just go there and crash them, and then we'll have peace on the continent. You see, so it's very important that we look at. So thank you very much, brother, that you have kind of shown support for the CSG position, and the CSG position is a position of radical Pan-Africanism, and radical Pan-Africanism has its roots in the philosophy and the ideology of radical Pan-Africanism, which is summarized in the book Consensusism. In the second book, Africa Must Unite. And then the third book, Neocolonialism, the last stage of imperialism. So thank you very much, Brother Charles Ali. Please continue to join us and share with us your perspectives. Let's go to, thank you. I think we've heard from Brother Leonard, Brother Joseph. We've heard from Brother, So shall we hear from others who haven't put up their hand? I'm going to call others to share their views. Brother Dicey, but if you feel you want to say something, please feel free and let me know. Yes.
Brother Leonard hasn't spoken, but allow me also recognize. Okay. Brother Leonard hasn't spoken, but let me also recognize the presence of Brother Kwame Uhuru, who is in the US, and Sister Lawrence from Reunion Island, who has just left. Permit me just to record that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, normally we acknowledge people's attendance. Brother Leonard, please speak. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, comrades. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. It's a great pleasure to listen to you all. And my colleague, Charles is my colleague. I just shared the link in our diplomat class, so he was able to join. I'm happy. Thank you, Charles, for your submission and also always fighting for this continent. To me, I can't reiterate whatever they have said. We have seen the challenge of common market and custom trade in all these regions. We have seen the challenge of infrastructure development in all these regions. We have also seen the issue of the challenge of conflict and terrorism. It is there. We have seen the issue with good governance. It's still difficult in this continent. The issue concerning poverty and hunger in this continent, whereas we have all it takes and all it needs. Our intelligence experts, we are using different security people to solve different challenges in the world, but ours is still not united. Why are we not united? We are not speaking the same language because of different political views, different political ideologies, different interests. And if we to stand for this continent and to defend for the cause, there is need for African unification. Unity in terms of knowing the restructuring of our institutions, in terms of education, policy framework that guides Africa, developed in Africa and contextualized in Africa, and as well as ensuring that our foreign policy has a high transactional analysis that is based on what we are able to negotiate both on continental and global stage, because I can never say not at this global stage, we cannot operate in isolation. So, my battery, sorry.
Brother Leonard, your voice has disappeared. Brother Leonard, I know you are speaking, but we can't hear you. Thank you. Anyway, come back when you are able to. The time is 8:30. We have half an hour left to the end of this class. I would like at this point to ask Brother Pigeon to take over the chairing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On this part of our next roughly 20 to 25 minutes, we'll ask one simple question, and when you come in to respond to the question from your standing point as an individual or from the region that you belong to. Do you think they're doing enough in terms of the unification of a continent? And if no, what do you think must be done from your side? Because that is the direction in this aspect. So you having come from either ECOWAS side or SADC side or COMESA or IGAD, do you think from your standing point that they're doing enough towards the unification of Africa politically and economically, including AU? And if not, what do you think must be done? Because you must now think and move to action. So feel free to raise up your hand. Brother Kwame Uhuru, you've been putting more chats on the text, which I do appreciate. Will you feel free to maybe share something via audio? Kwame? Then I'll go to Brother Joseph, if Kwame is again willing, but if he's not. Yes, Kwame.
I'm here, brother.
Yes.
First of all, I want to thank you guys for this effort in terms of building unity between Africans everywhere. One of the things that I consider being essential to the unification of Africa and its development is enhancing the relationships with Africans on the continent, with the Africans in the diaspora. I can't speak for every African in the diaspora, but I can tell you from what I can see here in my home country, there are a lot of us who are not happy with the status quo that we've been living under here for the last 400 years. And there's a lot of us that are starting to become more cognizant of Africa, our roots, and wanting to come and visit, and not only come and visit, but to live. And I firmly believe from the comments that you saw me typing or that I posted, I don't think that Africa can unify and develop quickly and effectively without the input in terms of resources, manpower resources, capital, etc., to aid in that effort. I think too much of what's going on in Africa, from my vantage point, is dictated by the people that control the purse strings, which are the people that don't want to see us united. And I believe that if we can create mechanisms to more fully engage the diaspora, we can self-fund a lot of the things that we need in order to unify. And I think that process necessitates powerful Africans that are advocates of Pan-Africanism really make an effort to unite with powerful Africans in the diaspora in the United States and Europe and Central and South America to leverage that. And, you know, I don't necessarily say that Israel is the greatest example, but if you look at how Israel has prospered, they had their people go there, they worked hard, they built a very modern society. Obviously they had some help, but they built that society essentially in the desert, and they've made it very easy for their diaspora to contribute to their growth and development. in every way possible, including granting them citizenship. And I don't see, from my vantage point, very much effort on the part of Africans of the continent to do the same and marshal the resources that are available. You know, as someone mentioned earlier, there's approximately 1.2 billion Africans of, you know, sub-Saharan Africa, but there's also at least 100 to 200 plus million Africans of diaspora. There's 35, 40 million of us here in the United States, and there's way more than that in Brazil. And that's not including the ones that have migrated to Europe. Why aren't we leveraging those resources? That's my input. I think that we do ourselves a great disservice by not marshaling the efforts and talents of Africans everywhere. And if we do that, we don't need anybody. We don't need Europe. We don't need the United States. We don't need Asia. We could actually become self-sufficient. It's just a matter of having a couple of willing African leaders to get the ball rolling and show what is possible by doing so. Because I believe that the African masses are dispirited across the globe. We don't have anybody effectively speaking for us. And if you had one or two or maybe three strong African leaders, kind of in the mode of maybe say Honorable Paul Kagame, and seeing what he's done in Rwanda with, you know, one of the smallest countries in Africa, I think that's amazing. You know, I'm not saying everybody's perfect, but what I'm saying is we need decisive leaders that can communicate, that have a unity of purpose and a will to involve partners and not just talk. You know, the talk, we've been talking to talk, everybody knows what we need to do, but we need doers. We need people that will really do. And once we do that and we can show tangible progress, I think the masses will fall right behind those leaders. I mean, you look at our brothers and sisters in the Sahel and how excited they are at the prospect of throwing out the French and supporting, you know, the people that took power. That shows you that our people are hungry for effective leadership. And that's really all we need. We have everything else. We just haven't brought it together and pulled it together.
Thank you.
And that's my 2 bits.
Thank you, comrade. Thank you very much for that. I want to go to Brother Joseph Anthony, but I want to get your position, Joseph, in regards to you are coming from the Caribbean. And do you think when you call for the unification of Africa into one continental political unit and economic unit, how does it sit from you being in the Caribbean, leave alone African diaspora, but you also have Africans who are in Caribbean? Is this notion of one continental political unit will work also to them, or what do you think is your view from the Caribbean, the Haiti people and the Grenada people, and the fact that now one Kenyan country in Africa want to go to fight another Africans outside Africa, it really make it not showing the direction of our unity. So what is your take, Joseph, from the Caribbean?
Yeah, well, the pigeon is very complex. In fact, before I respond to you, I think that while the comment before me made, I mean, generally I wouldn't disagree with most of what he said, but a couple of things he said I can't agree with it at all. Using Israel as an example, that Israel has evolved and developed at the expense and the destruction of other people, And then 2, we not too sure of Paul Kagame and how his connection with West, how they have, we know that what he did after the genocide, but some of the examples I think is really not solid. But to come to answer your question, and it goes back to when you folks began to speak this afternoon, a lot of emphasis was on the continent. But I felt that when we talking about unification, we had to include simultaneously people of, African people everywhere. So, which would probably take in what the brother said before in terms of including the people from the diaspora. So when we talk about the unification of Africa, it might not just be on the land, but it will be wherever, as COMESA, Africa is born in us. Whether we like it or not, we already have Africa in us, so we don't necessarily need to go. And the other thing about it, that there's a lot of people who want to flee where they are, to go back to the land, to the motherland, I don't think that it is necessary for all of us. We do need some kind of connection between people in the diaspora. I remember a Nigerian guy telling me in Grenada, he was saying, the Caribbean is so successful, and I don't understand what he meant by that in terms of how governance structured and so on. He would suggest that the Caribbean go and colonize Africa. And to me, that was very disturbing because he, to me, didn't understand what colonization is. To further deal with your question, I think we must exercise solidarity wherever we find ourselves. For instance, the comrade from US, I wonder what he thinks about for instance, the connection between him, within the American, African American, and the people of the Caribbean, and also including Central America, the people with different language like Spanish, Dutch, Portuguese, French. A lot of times we speak cosmetically, and that's only in relation to what we think is under the ground on the land. But we have to also think about the whole life, the whole of the African reality, and wherever African people are. Look at what has happened. We have the decade of people of African descent. Absolutely nothing has been done. We failed. And on top of that, let me go back to Haiti in relation to Haiti. You talk, Brother Pigeon, about another African country wanting to invade an African, because Haiti indeed is an African country, whether we like it or not. This is why I fight for Haiti, even though I wasn't born there. I would give my life for Haiti. Unlike what was going the United States from where the brothers come, they are leading all the nastiness. They are the main people. It's not Haitian killing each other. They are sponsoring all the mayhem. And I see parallel between what is happening in Africa, whether it's in the Sudan, and what's happening in the Caribbean. You could imagine. We are told that the Haitians are killing themselves like whatever. And not one of the Caribbean islands leaders are doing anything because they have to get instruction from Washington and Ottawa and maybe Brussels. They have to, so unless our people, become awake. In fact, we should not continue to rely on leaders. In fact, one of the things I heard from the brother, this thing about saviorism, we don't need no savior. From every African that gets conscious must begin on a daily basis to live his life as much as possible with the vision of the unification of Africa, not just sentimentally. So when we see another African, as Malema said, we must treat that African with respect. We must treat him as a brother or sister. We don't do that. We still say American, we still say Caribbean. We have to begin to see the unification of Africa from the people point of view, whether it's from Brazil, whether it's from Costa Rica. Many people don't know there's a whole set of Africans, millions of Africans in like Peru. You tell people, I have Africans there because they were never exposed to the folks. Because look what is happening in Ecuador. Mayhem is happening there. Who is behind it? Same Uncle Sam. Drug and all that kind of thing. These people are decimating our people, and we remain silent. And we want to use the same system, exploitative system, to build a new African war. I'm not in favor of that at all. But we could, those of us who are committed or understand that in a lot of ways we have a long way to emancipate ourselves, as Bob Marley said, from mental slavery, from emotional slavery, from all the slavery, the element of slavery. And when we're able to do that, I think we'll be moving forward. But what is happening in Africa is happening in the Caribbean. And unfortunately, and another part, including America, there are people, when they talk about unification of Africa, only think about maybe finding some mysterious way to get back to the motherland. And when they get there, some of them, they can adjust. We have to understand that wherever we have to make it Africa and make it possible that if we want to go to the mainland, we can go, as the other people do.
Thank you.
There are a lot of Europeans are living in other parts of the world, but they live in Europe wherever they are. The Europeans, the Caucasian people, country, I mean, wherever they go, they are. And they're also making us look at other people who might be allied to us as a potential enemy. We have to decide, Mandela said, we have to decide who is, I mean, on our own, who are friends and who are enemies. Thank you very much. I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah, thank you very much, Brother Joseph. I'll be going to Mr. P before I move to Edai. But Mr. P, I have a question to you that I want you to respond to in regards to this topic. Now, are we seeing enough of the diaspora coming directly to be involved in politics of Africa towards the unification and economic development of Africa? For example, are the diaspora, Africans in diaspora, really actively concerned about the leadership of Africa? The leadership of Africa, the political leadership of Africa, are they asking enough accountability question in regards to current leadership of Africa? And are they really pushing enough? I know the African Union recognized them as the 6th region, but will they come in to shape the conversation in African Union to escalate faster the unification of Africa? Because this is where it is pending. Look at economic aspect. I believe the African diaspora have enough wealth to ensure that they can even create a bank to fund Africa. But African presidents and whatever call themselves still go to IMF and the rest. So is there really enough effort from the African diaspora towards helping Africa attain political unification and economic liberation? Brother Mr. P.
Brother, thank you so much for your question. Sorry for my late attendance tonight. This is the 4th Zoom I've been on today, and I'm zoomed out. Trust me, I'm zoomed out. So in response to your question, my brother, simple as a question may seem, the answer is actually quite complicated, as my brother there in Grenada was alluding to, and also I wanted to respond to my brother over there in the States. Yeah. Okay, where to start? I'll be as quick as I can. What we have is one set of people that have been scattered around the world, right? The home or the base is Africa. We have got people literally all over the world. Brazil's got about 120 million Africans. South America in total has probably got coming on for about 180, nearly 200 million, yeah? America has got 50 million. The West Indies has got about 40, 45 million, right? Now, not only are we geographically split up, we're split up politically as well. We're split up and divided economically. And when you just look at the West Indies, you've got 25, 30 islands out there, right? And they are all living in silos. And what I mean by that is they're all individual islands, right? And the cultures on each island is different. So what they may call the same food in Jamaica, they may say, for example, in West Africa, we'll call it puff puff, yeah? Puff puff in Gambia, for example, or Ghana, is Johnny cake in Jamaica, which in Grenada or St. Lucia is bake, right? So it's all basic, it's the same thing. It's dough that you fry, yeah? But different names. Now, there's a problem in the region, in the West Indies, what I call islandism, where every island is just doing their own thing. There's no unity. Yeah, you have CARICOM in the West Indies, but that's no different to the AU. There's a talking shop. There's nothing actually, not much gets done. Yeah. So everyone out there want to hold on to their own identity, or not even identity. Well, they want to hold on to their nationality. This is the problem. So we've got a combination of issues. We've got an issue of how people identify. We've got an issue of their nationality, and we've got the cultural differences as well. And that's why I said this is kind of complicated, because even though Africans in America are the same people as Africans in the West Indies, yeah, You can't say to a lot of Africans in America that they're African. They don't want to hear that. They want African American at the very most, African American. They will not identify as Africans. Yeah. And the similar thing in the West Indies. They don't want to identify as Africans. Yeah. And it's the same thing here in Europe. Yeah. A lot of Europeans, Africans, do not want to identify as African. So a lot of the people from the West Indies born here don't identify as African. They identify as where their parents are from, right? So getting back to your question now, in terms of the politics, no, I do not think the diasporans play a big enough role or take on board African politics. And it's because of these, the reasons I just mentioned. You've got the whole difference in identity. You've got the cultural differences. You've got the national differences. Yeah. So
one more minute, Brother P. In a minute, 1 more minute left.
Yeah, so yeah. I was gonna round. That's why I'm rounding up. I'm actually rounding up because I'm seeing the time. Yeah. So there's not enough engagement, I don't think, from the diaspora, because as my brother there in the States mentioned, and I say this, and I've been saying this for years. Yeah. Africa does not need the rest of the world. The rest of the world needs Africa, and until us in the diaspora get that in their thick heads, right, that you are African, firstly. Secondly, yeah, we don't need the West. The West needs us. Once people can understand that and can identify, are willing to identify as being African, because that is our ethnicity, whether we like it or not. Doesn't matter which country or which island you're from. It doesn't matter. Yeah. If you look like me, if your skin is like mine, if your hair is like mine, if your nose is like mine, you're African. And I don't care where you're born. You are African. That's your ethnicity. And getting back to Israel, which was a bad example, I think, that the brother gave, but I get what he was saying. Israel is a bad example because they're all Europeans. They're not Jews. They're Jewish. They are fake Jews because they all came.
1 minute.
Yeah, that's fine. 1 minute. After the war, they all flooded into Israel, what we know now as Israel, right? That deal was created by England. England ripped off the Arabs. But by the time the Arabs realized they got ripped off and lied to by England, it was too late. Millions of Jewish people had already come into Israel. So the whole thing is a mess. Israel is a mess. And again, Paul Kagame, I wouldn't use him as a good example either, Rwanda, because in my opinion, he actually caused that genocide that happened in Rwanda. Okay. So I'll land there for now. Yeah. But in answer to your question, there needs to be more engagement from the diaspora, absolutely, politically, economically, and they need to go back home. They need to go back to Africa, see who they are, get their roots, and get engaged.
Okay. Before I go to you, Kwame Uhuru, I know you want to come in, but I want to give a question and a chance to Adai Sebo within the few minutes we are remaining. Of course, we may take 3 to 4 minutes to talk about this. But my question to him is, of course, as senior Pan-African, is as senior to our chair, is that there have been recent efforts by the likes of Lumumba from Kenya, Dr. Rikana. Do this actually show you any hope as a senior Pan-African in this system that we are moving to the right direction? And do you feel that the Africans really taking their message enough of this, now the so-called current Pan-African who are speaking unlike of Malema? Do you think there's enough support from Pan-African to actually implement their goal? Because they have spoken in so many forums, but is whatever they're speaking really taken into consideration? Senior Adai Sebo?
Thank you very much. Yes, I salute what Arikana, Lumumba, and others have done over the past 3-4 years, and leading particularly to what I call the Arikana thrust in the Sahel. and the exposure of France, and particularly, again, based on the situation in Haiti, that has triggered the Sahel experience now. I salute them. They've done tremendously well. But please, of all what we are saying, what should be uppermost in our mind is, what does Ghana mean to us as Africans? What does Ghana, the state of Ghana that was formed by Kwame Nkrumah, how did it evolve? And what does it mean to us? By this, what does Nkrumah, on the eve of independence, saying that the independence of Ghana is meaningless unless it's linked up with the total liberation of the African continent, what does this mean to us? And what did Ghana do practically? Ghana, under the Convention People's Party, do practically when they gained independence? This is what we should be reflecting on now, because as I cast my mind across Africa now, I cannot point to any liberated territory on the continent. Africa has effectively been colonized. That is my shame. In terms of my generation, we have failed and betrayed Africa, and that is my shame, because I cannot point to a single liberated country in Africa. There's a reconsolidation of the Berlin Conference, and we have Bantustans all over. So the example of Ghana being a liberated territory, and what Nkrumah used that liberated territory to achieve. When Ghana gained independence, there was other 7 independent African countries, 8. And then from 1957 to 1963, when they gathered at the OAU in Addis Ababa to form the OAU, there were 32 African countries, or 30 countries added to Ethiopia and Liberia. So, and that was precipitated by the independence of Ghana, and Ghana as a liberated territory. I'm stressing this to say that now what faces us as a people is the challenge of having a liberated territory. So we owe it to us in all the Bantustans that we call the African nations, the challenge of liberating these countries. But as it happened in 1947 and all that, when they gathered after 45, they gathered in Manchester and all that, they sat down and saw that Pan-Africanism without a liberated territory is meaningless. So they looked and studied and saw which area can be liberated. And because of the peculiar settlement and history of Sierra Leone, they decided on Sierra Leone. And they had prepared Wallace T. Johnson, the firebrand trade unionist, to go. Then, fortuitously, a letter came from Ghana asking Kwame Nkrumah to go and join forces with the United Gold Coast Convention. And Nkrumah showed this letter to CLR James and Padmore. They called Jomo Kenyatta, Wallace Johnson, and others, and they said that the plan has to change. Nkrumah, you are going to Ghana. Kwame Nkrumah resisted and protested that he wanted to finish his PhD. But what I'm adding to say that, look, the importance of a liberated territory. So we have to think about liberating. The third Chimurenga has to be launched. We have to liberate a territory or series of territories. That is a challenge facing the younger generation now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senior. we are 2 minutes to our time. So Kwame Uhuru, in a minute, then Kwame Gonza will come and close the class. Christian Kwame will come and close the class. Kwame Uhuru, in a minute, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for allowing me to add these last comments. First, I appreciate the comments that the other brothers made regarding my 2 examples. I did make those 2 examples consciously. I did qualify that they're not necessarily the perfect examples, but what I was getting at, the heart of the matter is action and being able to effectively harness human capital. In both cases, whether you discuss Israel or you discuss Rwanda, they've been very effective at harnessing the human capital to achieve outstanding development. Same thing for China. You know, everybody has their ideas about different political systems, etc. But the key to their development was they created a plan and they effectively utilized their human capital. And, you know, part of that is education, knowledges and skills and so forth, and putting those in the right areas to grow. So we need that. And then lastly, brother mentioned about the consciousness of the diaspora. There are quite a few Africans in the diaspora, at least here in the United States, that are conscious about Africa and concerned about Africa, but we don't have any effective message, and we need that. And we can only do that with leaders that are connected to news outlets. And so I'll just leave it at that, but just keep that in mind. If we want people in the diaspora to be together, we have to have a cohesive message. And one way, effective way, if you guys have heard of that guy, Walter Maya, who's been going all over Africa and the world, he's done a great job at making people conscious. And he's done it very low cost. So just keep that in mind. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Kwame. I'm sorry we are almost past our time, but come in and close our class today.
Brother Pigeon, I thought you would let Brother Gatluak speak because he's had his hand up for a long time. Give him about a minute. I know we usually finish at 9, but...
Okay, with your permission, I can give him. Brother Gatluak, in a minute, please.
I wanted to say something as well.
You didn't raise up your hand, Sister Marin, but with the guidance of the chair, we'll give you the opportunity. So, Gatluak, a minute, then we go to Sister Marin.
Thank you, my fellows youth and my fellows brother. What I want just to add is...
Brother, we are all not youth, you know. Please.
Do you hear me now? Am I audible?
We are all not youth. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. You are youth because the opinion that you have is the opinion of the youth.
I am not youth, brother. I know you are youth. I am not youth. Thank you.
Thank you. So, what I want just to put into our intention is we all captured the problem. We all know the problem that we are facing in Africa. But my concern and what I can give to us an advice is what are we going to achieve or what are we going to do to end the suffering of the Africans, since the date of our birth till the date of today. So because we do have a coming class in the weekend, I requested you that I have a topic that I want to share with us in the coming weekend, if you've been allowed me to have that opportunity.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Get in touch with me via my WhatsApp. I know you have my number. Get in touch with me so that I'll organize that. Is that okay?
Thank you.
Okay, Sister Mali, because no sister has spoken, Brother Kwame, no sister has spoken since the start. So allow Sister Mali to say what she wanted to say.
Yes, what I wanted to say is going back to using Israel as an example, like somebody has said, one, they're European, two, they've been given constant help from America especially and all over Europe, and they've been given a buffer to help them up. And Rwanda also was given a buffer to help them up, because it looked like they've had their plan to put people in Rwanda that people have been, not wanting it to happen, has been denying it and say it shouldn't go ahead. So whenever you see a country develop, always the West is behind it. The only reason China was able to develop itself, I remember as a child, the whole of the West had China locked them completely out, and they didn't have a clue what China was doing. And they used to tell us a lot of negative things about China and how they're evil, how they're this, how they're that. And when it suited China, China started selling them some cheap stuff, which was of value for them. And they started using China to make all their stuff because China could make it that much cheaper. And then China managed to get them in their claws. But you've got to shut them out. And Africa has got them entrenched in Africa, whether it's, you know, they've got people, CIAs and whatever, overlooking everything that's going on there. Whatever they're doing, they are entrenched, whether they've got aid workers there, whether they got peacekeepers there. I don't think China was entrenched with them so much. So most of the country we say have done well is because they supported them to do well. They've done everything to make African countries collapse, because whenever we get any leaders in place that say they're going to do something to change the system in Africa, they get eliminated. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Kwame.
Thank you very much. So I think we shall formally bring our meeting to a close, and I would like to make 2 comments. The first is that I think Brother Adaisibo's call to us to look at the question of liberating a territory or territories in Africa, as Ghana was at the time, to become the springboard for the unification of Africa, I think is in order. That's something we need to think about. I also like to say that Sister Marlin's point about the West being supporting modern development. Well, after the Second World War, they supported Europe that had collapsed to redevelop. But then who was behind the rise of America? Who made America what it is? Africa. It's Africans working in the plantations and so on that made America what it is. In fact, America's money is our money. Their capital is our capital. Everything in America really belongs to us. It's ours. It's our forefathers and mothers who created them. So we've done it before, we can do it again. So to summarize, yes, we are here and we are talking about unification of Africa. We are saying that Africa must unite and that we must, all of us, begin to have that conversation, and we should talk about it. We should mention it to people wherever we are, let them know how important unification is. And thank you all for coming. We shall meet again next Saturday to continue the conversation. In the meantime, we will hold our conservatism class on which we do on Thursdays from 7 to 9 GMT. So thank you all for coming. Sister Ashola, I know you didn't say anything. Sister Ida, you didn't say much, but we like to hear our sisters also speak. So thank you very much for coming, everyone, and have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.